Okay, 7 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Will you all please stand? Say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening.
Good evening, Cheryl. Do you mind starting the roll call?
Present. Here. Present. Here.
Present. Present.
So,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
may I make a motion to excuse Councilmember Owen?
We have a motion to excuse Owen.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Looking for an approval of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
So we have a motion by Councilwoman Kenzer and seconded by Councilwoman Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, for the consent agenda, do you still want to pull item 6, Councilman DeYoung? All right.
Please, thank you.
So we are going to pull item 6, so I am looking for the approval of the consent agenda, items 1 through 5 only.
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
I don't see 6.
Do you have the updated? Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead. And also, or no.
Madam Mayor, I would like to pull item number 5 for further information.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I would like to move the consent agenda items 1 through 4.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So instead of moving this all to new business, why don't we just go ahead and take care of them now? So let's start in order with 5. So, Councilman Couch, would you like to?
Yeah, I would like John to touch on this a little bit more. I guess I just have issue with anything first reading being under consent agenda.
Okay, so the process for approving a preliminary plat goes through a hearing examiner, they have a public hearing, and then it comes to the City Council for approval. This particular plat has been approved and then modified. So it was approved, I want to say 2006, and then modified in 2014, and now being modified again. It used to be 22 units, and then in 2014 it was approved for 23 units. Now the proposal is for it to actually be reduced down to only 18 units, and leaving the frontage 120 feet along Cook Road to be commercial. Now that is what the city actually wanted. We did a rezone on this property. Since it was originally platted, so the applicant could leave it all residential, but he's chosen to leave that front one commercial, as the city is also wished the property to be zoned. So for all intents and purposes, he's bringing it into compliance with the current zoning and reducing the number of units and making the plat smaller.
John, my question also was, these lots looked incredibly small, 2,900 to 3,200 square feet.
Correct.
What is the intention there? To build single-family homes there, townhouses,
So these would
multifamily housing?
These
What's
would be
going on?
single-family houses on their own lots. This is the residential 15 zone, so it allows 15 units per acre. That is roughly 2,904 square feet per lot if you break it down by acreage. And so this would be small lots as opposed to an apartment building or apartment buildings in this case. So just a different land use
Okay, it also appeared to only have one entry in, no, I know when my daughter built on the property up on Township, she was required to have the driveway be both, like enter on one side and exit on the other. And this one appears to have an entrance in, but no exit out.
Well, I'm familiar with the case that you're talking about on Township. That was not a public street. That was a narrow driveway on a state route. So different classification of arterial. This is a full city street that is being constructed and has adequate sight distance from the Cook Road intersection, and is a full 2 lanes where it approaches Trail Road, so it has a adequate in and out, whereas that other case it was only like a 12-foot wide lane. And I don't remember how that was done way originally, the one on Township that you're speaking of. So that was done a little bit before me, so I don't have the specific details on exactly how that one came up.
Yeah.
But when it was built when the duplex that you're talking about, or was it a fourplex, I forget, was built in 2007 roughly, it was using the existing land use pattern there. There was already a couple of duplexes behind there, and using
it just replaced a single family with a duplex. And Judith has had issues with the intersection and no crosswalks and things near there. And I find it kind of challenging when you're going on Trail Road and want to turn take a left onto Cook. So I did have questions about that as well.
So, Mark, am I accurate in that this is going to have a right-hand turn pocket special on Trail Road? Before I speak from memory, I'm going to go to this project here, so I can speak to it exactly. And the way I recall this being designed is that we're requiring an additional right-hand turn lane from Trail onto eastbound Cook.
Get the right turners out of the way.
Okay, so on page 60 there's of the entire council packet, there is a plat map showing what it would look like, and you can see on Trail Road there's enough room between the curbs to change the striping and have a left-hand turn specific lane heading for travelers on Trail Road to head west, and then a right-hand turn lane for travelers to turn east.
There were several plat designs that we were that we had in our packet. Mm-hmm. Were a bunch of these like prior designs? I noticed there were several companies.
Exactly. This has been like I said, this was approved once, modified subsequently, and now this is the third modification. So I understand that it's very confusing where I think there's 3 different hearing examiners' findings in here and 3 different plat layouts. So I thought it might be helpful to point out on page 60 is the one that it would look like under today's proposal.
I had a question. Are you done? I'm sorry.
I am done now.
I had a question about the sidewalks. I think I saw in here where the sidewalks are modified to be smaller. Are they still ADA compliant?
Of course.
And then
yes.
I was wondering about the letter that was in this packet from Matthew. Have his issues been addressed where he needs more visibility and safety for him during the construction and even after the project is finished?
Well, it'll still be ADA. There will not be any changes to the road as far as additional bike lanes. I know that Matthew travels by bicycle, and that's, but there will not be bike lanes as part of this project. It's an existing street, curb, gutter, sidewalk. Is everything installed in the area already? So there's limited area to modify that. But as far as during the construction, we'll have the best management practices to require that if there's not pedestrian access through the current sidewalk system, that it needs to be provided for. I believe that's what the public works standards would demand.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution, I believe it's 1000.
It's actually 999-18.
999-18 to approve the modified preliminary plat of Arbor Glen, subject to the condition contained in the hearing examiner's finding of fact, conclusions, and recommendation.
So I have a motion by Councilman Couch. I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then the interlocal cooperative agreement. So, Mr. DeYoung, did you want to address your concerns there?
Thank you very much. My original intent was to move this along into new business so that way our presenters would have their time to go, and I'm still willing to do that if that's... Do you want to handle it right now?
Yeah, why don't we just move it out of the way and keep going?
Okay. This will be an extensive comment period. I wanted, first of all, to talk about this in many different levels. This was late materials as of yesterday for the interlocal cooperative agreement between Skagit County and Sedro-Woolley Fire Department for the Sedro-Woolley Fire Department Training Hub. And then it was placed on the consent agenda. We've had late materials consent agenda items before. The good example is when we needed to get some grants written in a hurry in order to qualify for grants, and that's when the council agreed to what was needed by one of our department heads. Unfortunately, the person that we made the offer to wasn't able to accept the offer. When I'm looking at the consent agenda and the items that are placed on there, I'm looking for like those ministerial processes that are done by staff that are exactly why they should be on the consent agenda. I'm looking at something that to me is quite a change based upon the events of what happened at County Council today with the dissolving of the Central Valley Ambulance Authority. And I have known that yesterday that there was a briefing for certain council members, but not all the council members have been briefed, and so I wanted to be able to have the information that was at that meeting by those witnesses and by those staff folks, so I could feel better prepared, because I feel it is a job of the person in this dais to be able to respond to folks in the community to say, hey, what's going on?
We didn't, this what you're talking about here, the interlocal cooperative agreement, that was not something that was...
Okay, I'm sorry if I was misinformed on that, but again, that's what we're looking at, just what's on the consent agenda and also with regarding to late materials. So I have questions about the Sedro-Woolley Fire Department Training Hub, and it's my understanding that we have 4 city fire departments in Skagit County and 22 fire districts. Are my numbers about right there, Chief Klinger?
You're correct. Yeah, there's other towns that are part of districts, or some are standalone, such as Hamilton. Okay. Because it's a standalone town.
Right. So I'm just posing these questions out, and it's not meant to be an interrogatory, but I do have questions, and that is, do we have on staff currently a senior EMS instructor?
Yes, we do, and Frank, you can speak to that.
Okay.
Frank, do you mind coming up and addressing that? Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I know this is totally ad hoc, and I'm just have some questions.
Not a problem, sir. With this agreement, as we're doing business now and have done in the past, Skagit EMS has provided this training for the entire county and has gone through what we call the OTEP training that provides our EMTs and paramedics the ongoing training they need to continue their certifications.
Help me out. I'm kind of resistant to TLAs or three-letter acronyms or the alphabet soup. So OTEP to me is something of an Egyptian mythology. So
is an ongoing training and evaluation program.
Okay, thank you.
It's a state certification, so you can do what they call CMEs, which is continuing medical education, which is X amount of hours you have to go and find yourself every year for your 3-year or 5-year cycle, whatever you're on as a certification. This county is under a different process, so we don't have to send our people out to pay for piecework and hours to get that for our EMTs. We have an OTEP program, so that you go to your first aid, your CPR, you do different adjuncts to take care of your airway stuff, your defib, your CPR, all that stuff every year, so that at the end of the 3 years, you have all that inclusive by attending these different trainings. In the past, we have been allocated to be, all this training has been provided by the EMS Council, so we've been kind of at their mercy as of, we've got this amount of instructors for the entire county, this is your days, you get these 4 days, and our people have been subject to making that, or then having to go out on their own time and find places to go to obtain this training to keep up to date and qualified. So this is a big win for the city, because now, as you know, we rely a lot on our volunteers. We have 36 volunteers right now and our part-time staff during the day. And instead of having them, if they have a vacation or if they're on National Guard duty, they can now, we can provide this for them in-house and not have to rely on those 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 days that are provided by the county each year. We can do it during the day, have them on staff and not have to come back after their shifts as our part-timer. We can provide this for them, if we have different shifts where we can do multiples in the same week, kind of at our own mercy, because we're going to be the ones that are going to provide the training. We went out to, as part of our hub, we were assigned Hamilton, Fire District 8, which we have a great working relationship with already, so that kind of made sense. And then we had the opportunity to also look at Clear Lake at District 4 and District 16. We went out and made sure, we don't want to force this on anybody. We want to make sure these people want to do the training and come to us, or if they have an opportunity to be a part of a different hub, they could. They all chose to join and be a part of ours, those fire chiefs and those entities.
Can I ask a question right there then?
You betcha, sir.
So I'm coming, I've owned some small businesses in my life, and so I'm always looking at the market survey of what the clientele is going to be and the sustainable stream and for how long we're going to have it. So when you mention Fire District 4, 8, and 16, I believe, have they signed a letter with us saying that they are totally committed to using us as their training?
I am not aware of any letter that they have signed.
Okay, so we don't have a commitment from those fire districts that they're going to be using us.
And they realistically, under this plan, they don't have to. We have to provide X amount of training for them to give them the opportunity. They still have the choice and the opportunity to use the other hubs if they so choose. But we, as the contract in front of you, we have to provide X amount of days to give them the opportunity. And right now, we're looking at, I believe, 4 to 5 personnel that need the EMT training at District 4, and only 1 at the town of Hamilton. And I think there's a substantial more greater amount of EMTs and personnel in District 8.
Do we have a client at this point? Do we have someone that says, yes, we will use you?
Yes, ourselves. We have to do it.
I'm sorry, I've got three people talking at me.
Yes, I mean, we've talked to the the chiefs and the commissioners are both 16 and 4 and 8, and they've all said, yeah, we're going to use Sedro-Woolley, but the biggest the biggest client we have is ourselves. So we've got the most people, and we'll be utilizing it the most.
Yeah, I just have questions. So I'm not trying to build out the meeting, and I'm sorry if I have some questions here, but I need to be able to explain it to folks. So what is the sustainable funding mechanism for this to keep working?
The EMS office, as part of this training hub, is going to provide all of our training aids, including our CPR mannequins, CPR cards. We'll be able to provide this service to the public as CPR and first aid classes and build relationships and rapport there. We have agreements that are being set up to handle what the county is currently doing for the high school. So we'll be providing the CPR and first aid training that all of our seniors have to graduate each and every year. It's going to allow our EMTs and first responders to have the opportunity to get into the train-the-trainer classes, which is going to give them more certifications, make them better at the skills that they have, because they're going to have the hands-on and the training to kind of complete that cycle to make them better providers. It's kind of a win-win from every aspect, because we're going to have the autonomy to handle our people when and as needed and schedule those accordingly. The volunteers and the personnel that are part of this training hub as trainers are going to get paid. So instead of the 12 or 13, or actually it's $14 an hour the volunteers are getting now, they're going to have the opportunity to go out and train to other entities and to the schools at $65 an hour. Which is going to be a little bit of money for them on the side. And again, we're providing the service to us, and it's going to build those relationships with the District 4s, the District 8s, their personnel, and share resources. And all of our supplies are now going to be paid for by the EMS office for these hubs.
Okay. So what I've heard is that we have a senior EMS instructor ready to go.
Yes, ma'am. Or yes, sir.
Sorry.
I identify with pronouns he and him. It's all good. And that our biggest client so far is ourselves, and that we have verbal agreements with 4, 8, and 16.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any type of other agreement or that you might be looking for, some type of signature type of agreement.
Well, I like the bird in the hand.
Yeah, but we don't, but see, the funding is directly through the EMS office.
I'm sorry?
I said the funding is through the EMS office, so we don't anticipate having agreements with anybody other than the EMS office, the county. It's not relevant to our training model or the funding whether any of the neighboring districts come to our training hub or not. It just doesn't matter for the structure.
I'm kind of lost in the talk there. So,
well, what I'm saying is that the funding is not dependent upon whether District 8 or anybody else wants to use our training hub. So the training hub is a service that would be provided at multiple locations in the county, and if a district wants to use it, they can come use it. It's intended to be convenient, but we will have no agreements with the districts for training, right? That's not part of it.
That's why I'm asking questions.
Yeah, well, well, so that's the answer, is it's not, the money's coming from the county, we'll put on a service, and either folks will come use it or they won't.
Okay.
And we'll use it, so we would want to do this regardless of what any of our neighbors might want to do or not. But of course, District 8 is a multiple-decade committed partner. It's a no-brainer for them to cross-train with us in this model.
Right. So I'm curious, why is there urgency to this, and why this has to happen right now?
Well, the rest of the partners are moving forward. They're trying to kick this off tomorrow.
The rest of the partners, could you please explain who?
Well, the other training hubs. So the cities and Arrow Skagit, and I think is that Fire 13.
Right. This is and this is the same one that I brought to you in the workshop too.
Right. That's what I was going to say. This is not the first time you've seen this. This This is the third time this has come to the council in terms of a report and fairly detailed discussion, and that's why it's on the consent calendar, is at least from our perspective, this was not a surprise. So I do apologize, though, for catching you surprised.
It kind of came at me obliquely, maybe because some of the language wasn't the same as our workshop. And I could not correlate that. But I've received answers. Thank you very much.
You betcha, sir.
Very effective answers, and I want to thank you for taking the time to answer that, Assistant Chief and Chief and Aaron. And I thank you for the time, Mayor.
Absolutely, and thank you. So I am looking for a recommendation that the city enters into the interlocal cooperative agreement between Skagit County and Sedro-Woolley Fire Department.
I don't know where that is. So moved.
All right, I'll take that. So we have a motion by Councilwoman Cornegay and seconded by Councilwoman Kinzer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Can I just say?
Absolutely.
I'm really excited to be able to offer CPR as a foster parent. I just, 4 days ago, had to take a whole day off work to go to a class in Burlington, and it would be really nice if we offered those here, right here, close to home for me, and then other foster parents or who knows who could just do it right here. Thank you so much. I think that's awesome.
Well, and I would be remiss not to mention we actually do that already. The Sedro-Woolley Fire Department's provided public CPR on a bi-monthly basis for
15, 20 years.
Yeah, so, and we used to provide it for free, and I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago, the city council adopted the first fee because we had too many people scheduling slots and not showing up. So,
And one of the kickers on those CPR cards that everybody gets issued out, because we utilize a certain curriculum, the card itself is $25, which is ridiculous. Just to give you that card, they charge us $25 for the right to teach their curriculum. Oh. Yeah, so that's why we had to add a charge to it, because we were gifting too much.
Is that how much it is now, $25?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, Frank, answering those questions. I think it was probably good that you brought that up because we have a better understanding of what's going on, and so does the public. So, yeah, you're welcome. So let's move into presentations. We have a couple of them tonight, and I'm excited about our first guest. This is Wendy Sanderson. Would you like to step forward? And Wendy is going to be talking to us about civil discourse in the public arena, which is something that is much needed, especially if you read the paper or see the news or
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you about the civil discourse project that the League of Women Voters and the Dispute Resolution Center are co-sponsoring here in Skagit County. The way that this idea came about is as a certified mediator in Skagit County, working with the Dispute Resolution Center, I have the opportunity to go on an annual basis to an alternative dispute resolution conference down at the law school at University of Washington. And they bring in all kinds of wonderful speakers and facilitators and lawyers and mediators, and they give presentations about how to be better at our work. And there was a gentleman who came from Southern California, and he talked about the fact that with the way that things are going with our societal interlocution and how we don't seem to be talking to each other, that really the skills of mediators are the things that we should be looking to help us govern ourselves. And the regional director of the Dispute Resolution Center, Jackie Sterna, and I both were at that session, and we walked out into the hall and we said, we need to get him to come to Skagit County and make this presentation because, wow, that's just great, and we have wonderful mediators here and want all the things that we could do. So we talked to this gentleman, and it turned out that he was, the cost was $25,000 for him to come and present to us, and we decided that we could probably find less expensive way to do this with the resources that we have locally and available to us. So, as a member of the League of Women Voters, in addition to being a mediator, one of the things that I started realizing is that the League of Women Voters nationally has taken on civil discourse as one of its major efforts and emphases. And so we had a great opportunity to tap into the work that the League has been doing across the country, and also the work that the mediation organizations have been doing in order to put together our program. And I sort of started at the wrong place, I think, with my presentation, but I wanted to just explain to you what the vision is for the project. So before I tell you what the project is, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our vision. Because we were looking for new ways to solve problems through a mediator's lens or mindset, our goal our vision for this project is to find ways to build bridges between people and to find ways to make sure that respect is the way that we interact as we're looking to solve sticky problems. And that by building those bridges, we can find ways to work together collaboratively, and we can make commitments to each other that we're going to work together in order to find solutions, and we're going to stick with it and keep moving forward, even though sometimes, my view may not prevail, but I'm committed to the whole process. That's what our vision is. That's what we're attempting to forge here, is a reproducible format and template, so that as other sticky issues come up, we have a way to be able to get together, bring ourselves back to our commitments, and approach those. So that's our overall vision. The project itself actually started with a community meeting on May 5th, and at that community meeting, we were very optimistic and said, well, maybe 80 people would come. It's going to hold it at the college, and we're going to bring in some people to speak, and we've got this wonderful panel of folks, and it actually ended up that we had more than 100 people who attended, including some very famous people from Sedro-Woolley. And yes, very famous people from Sedro-Woolley. So that gave us the sense that we were on the right track, and that things were resonating with the whole discussion about, is civil discourse important in our community? And the overwhelming answer from that community meeting was, yes, it's really important. We want to move forward with this. So we put together 4 workshops, and what we called them is skill building sessions, where people could come to these sessions and learn more about how do we diffuse high energy situations, high emotion situations, how do we learn to listen to each other, how do we have conversations that can be heard, and how do we hear conversations from other people who may not share the same viewpoint that we do. We decided to put those sessions in each one of the cities in the county to hopefully make it easy for as many people as possible to attend. We held the first one again at Skagit Valley College in June. Our second one was just held in Anacortes week before last, and our next one is coming up here in Sedro-Woolley on August 9th. Right? And actually it's going to be here. So we really appreciate the space and the facility. And then our last skill building session will be in Burlington. And then subsequent to all of those skill building sessions, we're going to have a day-long session in October. And we will have at least one, and possibly more than one, sticky topic that has been identified. And we're going to gather people together to talk about how do we, with respect and with goodwill, come together to figure out what are possible ways that we could resolve these issues. So putting it into practice is in October. We've got a couple more skill building sessions to go. And I am here because these these sessions do cost us money to provide. We have been very fortunate to put together a wonderful advisory committee, which includes Mayor Johnson and the mayors actually of all 4 cities, and some commissioners as well, Lisa Janicki from the County Commission. And we have, from the advisory committee, we also have sponsors, in addition, the Skagit Valley Herald of Skagit Publishing, and the League of Women Voters has provided significant funding for our program, the Dispute Resolution Center. And we are coming to the cities to ask if there is an ability to be able to help us support our efforts for the skill building session that's being held in your location. So the budget that we have for the sessions for each one is $500. The fee for our trainer, facilitator, who is Mary Dumas, she is out of Everson. She's an internationally known facilitator, and I hope you will all get to see her work. She's inspiring.
She's actually been here before.
Oh, she has?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so you know her.
Yes, we do.
Yes, and isn't she inspiring? So, we have, Mary's budget is $260 for her facilitation. It's about $4 for materials for each person. We do provide limited refreshments and those kinds of things for the sessions, and then our publicity that we put out. So that is my request, is to see if the City Council would be willing to help us to support the actions that we're going to be taking here in the next 2 weeks. And I also, if I could just do one other shameless plug. The Lincoln Theater is going to be showing the movie Won't You Be My Neighbor? And it's the documentary about Mr. Rogers. And if you have any interest or concern about civil discourse and about having a heart for humanity, this movie is just incredibly moving, and I really hope that you'll be able to take in one of the 5 showings. The Lincoln is partnering with 5 different organizations, community organizations, PFLAG, our Civil Discourse Project, the Community Action Agency, the League of Women Voters, and the Dispute Resolution Center each have a specific night, and the Lincoln is working with us to sponsor that. But it's a wonderful movie, and it somehow relates to civil discourse in Skagit County, and I hope you'll be able to attend. I did bring some flyers that we have produced.
So are there any questions? Would anybody like to ask any more questions, concerns?
Maybe a comment.
Okay, Carl.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
I just want to say that I've really enjoyed and have been educated and have been inspired by all the sessions that I've been able to attend, which I think have been all of them so far. And this last one out in Anacortes was pretty powerful for me because it really brought home the idea that you want opinions that aren't yours, that you're used to hearing, and that there were 9 different threads, if you will, that you needed to hear. And I thought that was a really important message, and taking the survey, are you hearing of those threads? And if not, seek them out, which I thought was very powerful, that you're, as a decision maker, not getting the complete, comprehensive information unless you have those points. And I want to thank you for putting on these events. I think it's very powerful and inspirational, and I support the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
So if the council approves tonight the $500, where would that come out of?
Probably would take it out of the executive's communication budget.
So, is there a motion?
Can we approve the 500 plus
Well, I guess I'd understood the request was for the 500,
Yeah.
and the 260 was within that.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Thank you. I'm sorry.
So really for the council, if we just have a motion to approve the $500 to sponsor the event.
All right, let's do that.
then
A motion to approve the $500 to sponsor.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
To approve the $500 for sponsoring the civil discourse project as proposed by
Okay, so we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, Mayor. Wendy.
So Wendy, if you would send us a bill where you can send it to the mayor and she'll get it to the right place.
Can I make a motion to excuse Councilmember Couch?
So actually, he doesn't have to be excused because he was present. So he left early. There's a law enforcement incident that obviously is going to draw a lot of county resources. We don't have the details, but there's a shooting that happened. So he's gone. Obviously, our folks are gone. It didn't happen in Sedro-Woolley. Obviously, the fire chief's here and Frank's here, so it's not in our response area. But
thank you.
Yeah.
If we learn more, we'll certainly let you know as the meeting goes on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. So I see the other guest is Rebecca Larson. I don't see her here tonight.
I know we're 0 for 2.
We're 0 for 2. There we go. So why don't we move right into staff reports? Oh, is she?
Of course she
my
is.
goodness. Well, she's in the right place. I wish I was out there too. So Dean.
Well, other than, I'm sure Aaron will probably just touch on it here in a little bit, the county commissioners passed a resolution as far as EMS services today. We also have got hose and ladder testing coming up. You'll see us blocking off the street. Hopefully we'll either do that before Mark tears up the street out here. It's in August, but I don't think we're going to get that. Are you guys going to do it before then? No, okay, so we'll be able to mess up the street first then. And then we have our testing that's still scheduled for August 25th. If you know of anybody that's interested in volunteering, we're taking applications, so that's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Dean. John.
Nothing tonight.
Get out.
Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. Pretty much the same list I talked about last week, and I was thinking about it.
I'm having a hard time.
Oh, sorry.
Adjustment.
John had turned it off, sorry.
Hey!
Pretty much the same list as the last time we met, and I can address any of that you would like. Just a few highlights. The Fruitdale Road project's coming along well. They poured curb from McGargle roughly up to Wildflower today, and I'll start building the road back and getting ready for the overlay on that as the next steps. They'll be moving into building the mini roundabout in mid-August, mid to late August. The repair of the landslide area is moving ahead. We had to go down to 16 feet below the road level to get all the junk out of there, basically, and we're bringing that back up with gravel. We had anticipated part of that in our quantities, but it's going to go higher than that. I'm thinking it's probably going to be about $100,000 change in our unit price items, and a few new items that I'll bring to you as change order number 1 on the ways we had to modify the design. Not totally unexpected, and we have plenty of capacity to absorb that, but you'll be seeing that in a subsequent council session, request for that change order. The lane widening sidewalk is kicking off. We had the pre-construction meeting last week. Granite Construction is doing that in conjunction with the overlay project, which we're all glad to see. They overlaid many of the, I think they finished Highway 9 last night, and they did a good part of Highway 20. They still have to do the work around the Patrick Road roundabout and in that environment, but they're doing pretty well on that. State Street overlay, the bids close on the 2nd, and as I mentioned to you last time, we'll be bringing that back as a late item, just because the proximity to the next council meeting, because of the late time of the year we're bidding that, we want to get it to you as quickly as possible and get that awarded and under construction. We're hoping for good bids on that, but it is coming in sort of late, so we'll have to take a good look at that one cost-wise. David and Wally are both fully engaged in the design for the West Bennett Beatty Sewer Project. I'm getting regular emails from Teresa Pugh with Skagit Housing about that, and so they're anxious to get going on their project, and we're going to do everything in our power to have that project bid so we can begin the construction this year. It is getting late, and we may end up depending on the weather in October and November, it might be challenging to get all the paving back on. So I'll just let you know that up front, but we're committed to doing everything we can to get that project built yet this year. Lots of other planning things going on. Wastewater plant, I've got a contract amendment for Brown and Caldwell that will be coming to you next time, about $60,000 to add design for the next group of improvements under what we're calling Phase 1. That's looking at the digester system, doing some modifications to a couple other process parts of the system there. So that'll be coming. We requested a price from PACE, the company that did the annexation area sewer comp plan update, to now roll into doing the full comp plan update. That will be coming to you again in probably one of the next 2 meetings. And I mentioned last time the TIB applications for this year are due on August the 17th. We have 2 projects I'll be submitting on, and I'll put together a memo for the next council meeting requesting the match dollars for those and identifying the sources. We're looking at the main project under the Urban Arterial Program would be to widen Highway 20 west of town from Holt Camp to Hodgen Road. That'll support the Skagit County Behavioral Health Campus project, and that project also includes the entrance to that facility. The county is providing most of the funding for that. There's still about a $300,000 need with the budget estimate we submitted with the Economic Development Grant. So we're going to try for TIB. The county is pretty well committed to building that project regardless, but we would like to have some TIB funds for that if we can. Also, the first section of Jameson Street that we've got on our comp plan that in our TIP that you approved at the last couple of meetings will be Jameson Street. I think it's from 3rd Street to roughly 6th or something like that, about half of the length. As you all have reminded me, that road is getting additional traffic and is beginning to show quite a bit of wear. Nathan's been doing some patching of some of the worst of it, but we want to go ahead and get a full overlay planned on that road in the not too distant future. And I probably should say, Nathan sent out an email a little prematurely on the Hauser Road RCO grant. We still have high hopes that we're going to get that, but due to the way the announcement came out, he thought that was award and 6th place, but actually it was just we were number 6 project that went in the queue. So that's still under consideration, and we'll report on it later, and hopefully with the same good news, but a little later down the line. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Aaron, do you mind if we just step back and see if Jason has anything he'd like to share? Is that all right? Do you mind? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Jason?
Yeah, sorry I had to step out. Chief Cleaner said that the Skagit County Sheriff's Office has been involved in an officer-involved shooting in Big Lake right about 7 o'clock tonight. So we're trying to help work out the details with that. As far as us, a little bit's been happening. First of all, Officer Pierce broke his ankle, so he'll be out for at least 8 weeks. I don't know the details surrounding how or what he did to break it. It wasn't here. He's currently on Coast Guard duty, so maybe
I do. He was not fighting a bad guy. He was wrestling his garbage can in.
Is that what it was?
I hate to admit it on his behalf. It was a routine and rather mundane incident, but that's not what we're telling people.
Hopefully he can come up with a more exciting story. Last night, you may or may not know, we had the stabbing on North Reed Street. we know who the suspect is. He's currently on the run. So we will have a warrant issued for them hopefully no later than tomorrow afternoon or Friday morning. At this time, there's no threat to the public. We know everything but the entire why, and that's what we're still working on.
Okay. Thank you, Jason.
Go ahead.
Aaron, thank
and
you.
you probably noticed we're a little short tonight on the staffing, which is why we've got the sergeant working the radio and the council meeting.
Yeah.
And there he goes.
Well, I've got a couple items tonight, and the first one for me is when the newspaper gets a story wrong, we like to see a correction published in a future edition. And at the last council meeting, in response to a comment from Dennis O'Neill about the recycling article, I made a misstatement, which is I said that we were not covered by a daily newspaper. And what I meant to say was that we were no longer covered by the weekly newspaper, the Courier-Times, that used to be Sedro-Woolley centric. We are indeed covered by the Herald, and I appreciate it very much. The criticisms that you might hear or sarcastic comments about the Herald relate to my wish that they would cover us at every meeting and at all times, because I truly believe that the work we do in local government only works when the Fourth Estate's flashlight is shining brightly on the government. And so we're fortunate to have a reporter who's been covering Sedro-Woolley for many years now and is increasingly spread thin. But I did not, I misspoke and wanted to get that corrected. I've got a couple items. One is a item with a request for approval tonight. We have two of our non-represented employees who have asked for some shared sick leave. Normally this conversation is one that we have in the context of collective bargaining, but these folks aren't represented. It's short-term. One's a 6-day. The other one is between 10 and 14 days. Neither of them have leave balances adequate to cover that. Neither of them are full-time, so their sick leave is just not up there at that level, and they'd like an opportunity to participate in our shared sick leave model, which allows other employees to donate, essentially hour for hour sick leave. So we do not have a broad policy. These come to the council on an employee-by-employee basis. So I'm requesting tonight that you authorize, that somebody make a motion to authorize shared sick leave in the total amount not to exceed 20 days for 2 of our employees.
Madam Mayor, I make the motion to authorize shared sick leave not to exceed the amount of 20 days?
Days, yeah, I might have misspoke there too.
For 2 employees.
All right.
Second.
All right. So we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Appreciate that. And next item on my list is the library project. Still lots of work going on there. The architects have been busy incorporating into their updated designs the feedback that they received from the community at the 30% session. We've got scheduled, at least tentatively, a 90% session for, I just want to make sure I've got the right date for you here. Well, I'll get it to you next time. I'm not seeing it pop right up. Sometime in the next, it seems like about 5 weeks. So they're working very, very quickly to get that design phase scope done so they can get that back and move to the construction document phase. So we're still working on the same time schedule, which has us moving into the demolition phase yet this fall. So our expectation would be that probably by Thanksgiving the site would be entirely clear. We're working closely with Puget Sound Energy on some both power needs for the new building, possibility of energy efficiency funding for some upgrades, as well as relocating power lines to accommodate our future pedestrian plaza. So some pretty exciting work going on there, and it just seems like everything's coming together. One of the things that we'll be looking at pretty closely with the next iteration, which we're calling the 60% design level, will be some cost estimates, so ensuring that what's being drawn will be affordable as we imagine what this will cost at the midpoint of construction partway through 2019. So that is still the time frame. 2019, go out to bid in March, start construction in April or so, and be done near the end of the year with a move-in in early 2020. So more to follow on that. I guess the next report, other than just a status update for the council and the district board, will be the presentation of the 90% plans at the joint public meeting. And of course, if any council member wants more detail, the mayor and I are always happy to visit, or if you've got specific questions that you'd like addressed at a council meeting, we're obviously happy to do that too. On the EMS front, I put on your days tonight a late materials memo. There's no action requested, it's informational, but I wanted you to know what was going on, including the passage of the ordinance today. So this is something that has been the last few meetings, and I think will be for the rest of the year, a regular feature of city council meetings. It's probably going to move from report status to agenda item here as we start to have action items. So the big picture is, of course, for how many years, Dean? 15, 18 years? About 18 years or so, the debate has been lively as to how will we serve Skagit County with pre-hospital care. And I think we're 5 reports, and I'm not sure how many hundreds of thousands of dollars into studying this question. And at each juncture, it's been fire-based. Let's go fire-based. And the Cordis has been doing that since 1984, I think, or somewhere thereabouts. And we just have bumped into lots of reasons why that hasn't happened. So this year, things are different. With the 4 mayors coming together in response to the EMS department's request and indicating a willingness to provide fire-based ALS, advanced life support, as well as BLS, basic life support services. The county had a work session last Friday at which 2 of the 3 commissioners said, that's what we want to do. I followed that up then today on Wednesday with an actual ordinance that directed the winding up of Central Valley Ambulance Authority. So the county's intent, as written in their ordinance, which you have a copy of, is that CVAA will cease operating transport in a transport capacity by December 31st of this year, and will formally wind up its affairs by the middle of 2019. I'm still on the board of the Central Valley Ambulance Authority, and we're having a special meeting tomorrow to receive the ordinance and begin that conversation. So it's there are a lot of moving parts, there are a lot of people involved, and there's quite a lot of work to get to the end result. The end result is that the 4 cities will serve the territory that is currently served by Central Valley and the city of Anacortes. So that's everything west of the eastern limits of the town of Hamilton. So it's the vast majority of the calls in Skagit County. Everything east of Hamilton will still be served by Aero Skagit, which is the current provider up in that portion. So each of the 4 cities, 3 of the 4 cities do not currently provide regularly ALS services. The city of Mount Vernon is licensed and capable, but doesn't staff 24/7 for that and doesn't do that routinely. Burlington is not, is licensed to do BLS transports, but doesn't. Anacortes is licensed and does provide both ALS and BLS services. And of course, as you know, Sedro-Woolley is licensed. It's a verified provider for BLS services, and this year we're expecting to have transported somewhere around 600 patients. So what this will do is expand our capacity to the ALS front. It will require a seamless countywide response based upon the criteria-based dispatch and closest unit ultimately, and will require our department to hire on, we believe, 7 full-time employees, paramedic firefighters, to provide this service. So again, lots of moving parts. We're going to have a place for these folks to work. That's probably one of our our first issues, and in the packet I provided just as an example of kind of that step one, the RSQ, which we issued today, a request for statement of qualifications to hire an architect to build an approximately 600 square foot addition to Fire Station 1. It's something that we've contemplated for years, but of course didn't have the need. This will provide the need for us to have 2 additional residential quarters to accommodate that function. And I listed just a number of other issues in the memo that are coming up. Probably the most critical for City Council will be the contract between the county and the city that details the terms of levy support and the performance measures that will be expected to achieve. The EMS department and I think the cities all expect that the performance measures will become more strict under the new model than they are today. We think that the response times, key performance indicators will be more detailed and will be scrutinized more regularly because the fundamental flaw in the current model is that the EMS department, their power to enforce a contract is to withhold payment. And the largest provider in the system, if they withhold payment, is only going to result in the county paying for that withhold payment in some other way. So there's no mechanism under that current unit component of government model for them to actually enforce those performance measures. So I think the county's excited about the idea that they can ensure that countywide seamless response with measurable outcomes in a way that they can't today. And we're similarly excited about integrating that service more fully into the fire side of things so we don't have that fragmentation of the system that exists today where fire shows up with 5510 and we bring 5519, which would be a command vehicle and an ambulance, and then a different entity shows up with a similarly equipped ambulance and we've got 5 people on scene for a call that required 2 and probably 2 at an EMT level. So we think this will not only allow for more efficient use of resources, we believe that on the very first day there will be significantly more units in the system because of how we can staff and manage our staffing within the department, not just Sedro-Woolley but the others, which will be good for everybody. The last thing I wanted to call your attention to is I put on the dais is a copy of the City of Sedro-Woolley's Ambulance Utility Ordinance, which I believe was adopted before any of you were council members and is fairly detailed and lengthy. It is really the framework for how this system will work. It's something we put into place I think around 2008, and I thought that just might be useful for your review. I'm anticipating bringing to City Council's next meeting an ordinance that will reenact a section of that we repealed for our convenience a couple years ago, which is the creation of a fund, a specific fund to account for this utility. As we launch this project, because of the way it's funded, it's our intent to recommend that we account for it as an enterprise fund rather than a general government expenditure. So we would treat this the same as we treat our sewer, stormwater, and solid waste utilities. The funding, of course, would come from a combination of EMS levy funds, patient transport revenue, intergovernmental revenues to the extent we have additional partnerships with neighboring cities for things like cooperative billing, and any general government revenue that the City Council puts in as they currently do, as we currently fund our fire department. So there's really kind of 4 revenue streams that I believe we'll see supporting this service. So I guess that's a little more detailed than I meant to give you. I just wanted to kind of get you up to speed with the action of today because that was very significant, and it's triggering a whole host of other activity that is going to start landing on your desk as early as your next meeting. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question about the Fire Station 1 that might get an addition.
Yeah.
So that would be funded by the county?
No, so well, sort of. Yes, I guess I'd say yes. How do you like that answer? No, sort of, yes? I could see Councilmember DeYoung was appreciating the clarity of my response. So The funding program that I anticipate bringing to you for that would be an interfund loan. We believe the scope of that's about $250,000. And the interfund loan, so that would be city funding through internally borrowed dollars. That fund would then be paid back over the course of the first levy cycle. So we would anticipate a 6-year payback of those dollars using then revenue from our ambulance utility. And that's built into the model, which is something that we're probably not quite ready to bring out to the council, but happy to kind of meet with council members. And it's a draft document, so it's not ready for public distribution, but we are working on a fairly detailed model of what it will cost to provide this service over the course of the 6-year levy cycle, and that is built into the model.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have lots and lots of questions, but you've already preempted them, that this is going to be a sticky issue that we'll be working through. And I'm glad in 2008 that we found some sort of mechanism to have a predictable funding source through an enterprise system. That's new information to me, and I'm glad you provided it tonight. So I'm thinking if we need 7 paramedics at $115,000 each, we're plus the equipment and maintenance of units, that's not insignificant.
We're anticipating that this will add about $1.7 million to the fire department's budget.
I look forward to the details.
Well, we'll be looking forward to providing them, and like I said, there's just a lot of moving parts and pieces. There are a lot of people involved, and I guess that's probably the last piece that I would want to touch on is one of the commitments that the city's made in their joint letter was to provide some sort of preferential hiring to existing medics in the system. I am anticipating that the cities will be working together to develop a process that will allow medics to, end up in one of those 4 cities in a way that's predictable and reasonable. Timing is going to be not what I'd like it to be. I mean, honestly, the announcement today that your shop is closing is just terrible news, no matter how else you say it. It interjects just a whole bunch of uncertainty, and I wouldn't like it one bit, and I'm confident that they don't like that either. The reality, though, is we, the city of Sedro-Woolley, are not going to be able to get to the point of offering jobs to people until after we have a contract with the county. So that's sort of step one, is detailing all of that out. And then we still will have to work through our own internal process to ensure that as we bring people on board, they meet our qualifications, we go through our civil service process, and we get folks on board. So I believe we're a couple months away, but we will be coordinating with our sister cities and with the impacted employees, just so everybody understands that we're all working to try to get to the same place. If in a perfect world, we would have decisions made with job offers and acceptances happening in October, early October. So there's at least 60 to 75 days prior to the start of the new employment. So that would be my target. I don't know there's some obstacles between here and there. So we're just going to have to stay really diligent on meeting all of the steps to get to that place. I think that's my last item. That's probably enough. I used up my time and John's time. And since the sergeant's gone, I can yield some of his time too. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Hello, Doug.
Hi. So my turn here. Thankfully, Aaron left me a few to share with you. So what I have tonight, as promised...
Having a hard time hearing you, Doctor. There you go. Thanks.
See if is this mic picking me up?
Yeah.
Close and personal with my mic here.
Got to eat the mic.
Can you hear this?
Yeah.
Like that? Okay. As promised, what I wanted to introduce to you tonight is the monthly financial report. And as I described at our last meeting, this is phase 1 of 2 phases. The general fund, of course, has the most departments, so it takes the most initial effort to get built and the model to you. So just a couple of high points. I won't go through the entire item. This is more introductory. I'll be compiling this every month as we go, and probably would anticipate council's indulgence to bring this to you maybe on a quarterly basis and go through it as an agenda item, so we have the opportunity to discuss different points and different things there and have that conversation. In the meantime, between those quarters, I'll prepare the report, most likely get it to you in paper form, but I'll also email it to you as well, so you have that in electronic format and can refer to it. So what I'd like to do is just spend a minute or two to go through a couple of the pages so you see how this works and get you familiar with the graphs and the information that it's giving to you. So the first one, if you want to turn to page 2, if you look in the lower right-hand corner of your handout, this page shows the total general fund revenues. There's following pages that give you more detailed breakdown, but for example, when you look at the graph on the right-hand side, you can see a blue shaded area. That represents what we've established as the budget for this year. The red line that tracks along that is what we're actually experiencing. So blue is budget, red is actual. And what you will see then is revenues come in at different amounts during each month. That red line will creep along. And so we'll be able to track and see how we are compared to budget. One of the key things there, it's important in building this model is, as you know, when we adopt a budget, we adopt an annual number. And so what I did, I went back to the last 4 years and got an average for all our revenue sources and determined how much came in each month of those years. So then I take this year's annual number and just spread it out the same way. And so what that gives me is that blue shaded area so we can track that month to month. So that's how that works. One page I want to highlight as well is page 3. You just flip to the next page. Page 3 has a couple of good examples that show cyclical differences in the type of revenues we have. So if you look at the very first one, property taxes, as you know, we pay our property taxes in May and November of each year. So this blue budget area will show 2 steps. You see it come up to a plateau in about May, and it levels out a little bit, and then it jumps up again in November. That reflects that twice a year payment that most people make. You'll see the red line tracks along that. Now, property taxes, of all the graphs, this one usually we hit spot on because we already know what we're going to get for the year from the county. What this graph tells you is if revenues are coming in more quickly than we thought they would or slower. One of the things I saw going through the recession on property taxes is I would do the same graph and I would see that red line go into the blue shaded area. And what I was able to determine is people were delaying payments on their first half taxes later than what they had in the past. What this shows me on this graph, the blue shaded area has adjusted because of that history now is built into it. Now people with the recession being over, they're starting to get back into paying it a little bit earlier. That's why you see that red line swing a little bit to the left. So it's interesting sometimes by looking at these and thinking about what people's habits are, tells you a little bit what we're seeing in our revenue streams. That's just a fun one to look at because it makes some sense and something we can all relate to. The one right below that is important. It's sales tax revenue. Now this one, I want to put a little more information into it. This shows right now that we are ahead of our expectations. One of the things about sales tax revenue, there are 2 components to it. The first is everything that you see here. The second is we have a lot of one-time items. If there's a construction project that maybe took 2 or 3 months, there's sales tax that comes in and then it's done. Aside from that, you have your core sales tax stream. This is the stores and things that on a monthly basis, they're there from year to year as going concerns. So what I want to do is add a second line to this graph that shows you what that core stream is, and then the red line will be what it is combined with those one-time events. The thing I've learned from experience a little bit is you can do projections with those one-time things in there, and suddenly you're never meeting your targets. So you want to make sure you're looking at the core sales tax revenues and the one-time revenues as well. So I think the next page would be page number 7. And this is where we start the general fund expenditures. It's the very same model, very same method there. Just to point out, general fund expenditures right now, we're running right on budget. If you think of it, we're 50% of the way through the year. We've spent 47.75% of our budget right now. So we're really close. It's always nice when it's under the 50%. So we're going the right direction on there. So a couple of the expenditure items, just as examples of things you can see happen. If you go to page 8, and the very top graph, this is the legislative area or city council. And you can see the red line has done a funny skip in there. It went low for a while, and it came up high again. And when I looked back at the budget, one of the things I saw is we got our voter registration cost billing from the county. In past years, we had spread that out a little bit over the year. We got a one-time billing this year and paid that. So it really gave us a funny twist on this graph, because you see it drop down a little bit and then it jumps up. What I would anticipate is that red line's going to level out and come back and meet the blue line probably just starting next month. It's just a change in timing. So the red line can reflect increases or decreases. It can also reflect changes in timing based on comparing it to the past. So that's how most of those graphs will work. There's one troublemaker department on page 9. That's the finance department. If you look at our line, we jumped up off the chart a little bit. And when I knew what this was right away. What we had is Patsy actually was able to have the state auditors come in earlier this year. And they were actually done by, I believe, March or April. We did our exit conference, where usually that was later in the year. And true to form, the state was very quick in billing us for that time. So where that cost had been spread out over the year, we now got the full bill in about April. And that's why you see that red line jump up.
So, Doug, that wasn't adding you to the budget.
Right. True. There could be a little bit of payout maybe when Patsy retired, her vacation and sick leave time. There's some things like that. So it just shows, that's what I like about doing this on a month-to-month basis. You can get these things pop out now and see them and adjust to them rather than waiting till the end of the year. So just a couple of quick spots. One item on page 14. I broke out a section that is capital. It's the capital budget portion of the general fund. This one, when I put it in there, a red line popped up on there, but I don't have a blue shaded one yet because the purchase of the 315 Murdoch property is in an upcoming budget amendment. So it hasn't technically been passed. So I changed the color there to red so it jumps out. And you'll be seeing that coming forward shortly here. And that'll keep us in track with the actual to budget expenditures. So just in case you noted that one, I wanted to explain that. The next page is a cash flow report. And what's important about a cash flow report, this is what gives finance directors nightmares and keeps us up at 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, is a lot of the city general fund revenues come in twice a year, like we talked about with property taxes. So on the lower graph there, you'll see the dark black line. And you see it jump up in May, and it comes back down, and it will jump up again in November. Typically, the red dotted line representing expenditures is pretty level through the year. But what we run into is from May to November, usually your expenditures are exceeding your revenue streams for that period of time. And that's what you have to really watch. There are times during budget we'll talk about minimum fund balances. Basically, it's what's the minimum amount you want to keep in your checkbook to make sure you can meet cash flow during the year, just like we do at home with our businesses. Cities have to do the same thing. So I watch that gap between the dotted red line and the black line so I know how much cash we're drawing down out of our reserves during that period of time. And some cities, it's 15%. So they have a minimum 15% fund balance, so they can cover that period without having to do short-term borrowing just to pay payroll and bills. You don't want to get into that situation. So this graph is important, especially the green line down there. You do not want that green line hanging down there too long. And also when you get to the end of the year and you're starting your next budget, you can look back to this and say, we want to make sure when we budget, we keep enough cash in there to cover those periods of time. So they're just key things for you to be aware of and be able to watch that. The last couple pages are on investments in cash. There's one that's the local government investment pool, or what we affectionately call the LGIP. And this is where the city has most of its investments. We're about $8.9 million right now. And I included a graph that shows the interest changes. It's nice to see interest rates going up. It's also nice to see that the state is exceeding its own benchmark. The LGIP is managed by the State Treasurer's Office, Doug Eckstein down there. And they have set as a benchmark the iMoneyNet. And the iMoneyNet ratio is a pool of other similar governmental type money market funds. And their goal is to always try to beat that. And you can see they average here on what is called basis points, about 40 basis points. Now, a basis point, if you have one investment at 1% and one investment at 1.4, that 0.4 difference, or 0.40, those are called basis points. So that's 40 basis points. So the State Treasurer's Office likes to keep about 40 to 60 basis points spread between what they offer and what the iMoneyNet pays out. So that's what that all means. And then lastly, the last page, I just show by fund what our cash is doing. You see beginning cash, money coming in, money going out, where we're at today. And there's even a little bit of a reconciliation to our bank balance that's included on that. It's a lot of numbers, but at least it lets us know, and it helps us track what our money's doing and when we're actually needing to look at our cash flow and those things, similar to the other graph that I talked about. So, like I said, it's a lot of information. I will be adding additional items for those funds, like the cemetery fund and other funds, our utilities into this. That's phase 2. And also something that tracks our debt and those things like that. So you have performance, you have assets, and you have our expenditure side as well. And hopefully that will be the comprehensive report we'll do on a quarterly basis.
That's great.
Doug, this is excellent.
Yeah, really.
Agree, Doug. This is outstanding, and something that I've been looking forward to for a while. I really appreciate the fact that it's graphical with numbers that are easily understood. I like the idea of that we're at plus 365% plus on the revenues and minus 225 on expenditures, and I call that a margin of almost 6%. That really shows some good budgeting and also some great tracking. This inspires confidence in what we're doing, and also had to give a little ribbing on, I think it was under what you brought out with that spike. So whenever we see that slope start increasing all of a sudden, that is something that we take note of, and I want to thank you for explaining that better, and look forward that to normalize. I, for one, would support seeing this on a quarterly basis. This is thank you very much.
It's a hit. Thank you, Doug. That was a lot of work. I know it was a lot of work getting it, and thank you for bringing it to us. Is that it? Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. So Judith.
Well, just with the new plat and all that, it's going to bring more people, and I'm still wondering about my crosswalk.
So we've included that in our sidewalk and ADA ramp project that we're doing, and due to workload, we're not going to get that one designed and built this year. But we do have it in that project for next year. That intersection itself, I should mention this, that's one of the 7 projects that's in our Jones-John Liner Trail Road Corridor, and it'll see some major changes when that happens. It's probably 5-6 years down the road, but the crosswalk we do have in that short-term project for next year.
Okay. Is that it?
Yes.
Jermaine?
I just kind of wanted to comment on the police keeping everyone safe last night. There were tons of them around when I came home last night, and so I didn't go home until I figured out what was going on. But when I came back home, then everything was cleared out and I felt better. I just wanted to say they really had everything covered, and I really hope that everyone else is safe up there, because I guess that happened in my ward. So, and I know some of those residents, and so I'm really anxious to hear. I mean, I understand, of course, confidentiality and all that, but I'm really anxious to hear what's happening, what the updates are. Also, I was wondering, when we looked at the one project today on Trail Road and Cook Road, I was wondering about if we could do something with the construction hours, especially around school time. The construction hours seem to go really late. I thought I saw 9 p.m., which is really, I think, really late for school days. I was hoping we could eventually in the future look at an amendment to the municipal code on that, on the hours for construction. That's it.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Well, speaking of crosswalks, I'd like to talk about Northern Street. I drive that road, Northern Avenue, excuse me. Drive that road twice a day, and it's kind of really become a speedway with quite a bit additional traffic than what it used to have. And there is not one crosswalk on the entire length of Northern Avenue, and only one stop sign. And at the end of Hayden Street, you can see a path worn into the old railroad grade there, where people are going to the library or the mini marts or walking to school. And with the increase in traffic and the density of children up in that area between Northern and Highway 20, it's really concerning. And I've had people approach me about it, near misses with children. There's just really not a safe place to cross there in the area of Haynes Street.
A lot of overgrown areas, too.
And there's that too.
That make it so you can't see the children. Yeah,
so we're wondering if there's a possibility that a location for another three-way stop could be considered, possibly at Haynes Street, and a crosswalk with some signage, because that's obviously a spot that's crossed out a lot due to the worn path through the grass going south, going north-south, and hoping that possibly something can be implemented before school starts there. Wouldn't be too costly. Wouldn't, just hoping you could look into that.
We'll look into that. I'll be honest, with workload right now with David and I, we don't have much time to look at those projects, but I do have it noted here, and I will get it going to look at it a little closer.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you, Brenda. Hello.
Hi. I just wanted to commend the community for their support of the Little League state championship this week. Great job. Yeah, look at there. He's got it on. And that includes the work by Rebecca Larson, considering that she is also opening the Helping Hands Food Bank on Saturday at 5 o'clock, which I expect everyone will be there for to cheer her and the facility on. That's been a major project for the city, and we've done a great job, and I want to commend all the people that have been a part of it. Also, this goes out to Jana Hansen and all of the people here in our city government who worked so hard on the City Scene magazine this month. That was incredible, and the topic is a difficult topic, and yet it was handled so well. So if you have not read your copy of the City Scene magazine, please do so. If you don't receive it at your home, you can look at it online. It's both on the city's website and the Sedro-Woolley Chamber of Commerce website. So it's easy enough to read in those places if you choose to do so. I also noted that in my emails that Nathan had mentioned that there was at least a ranking by the group in Olympia that's going to look at funding Winnie Hauser.
Oh, that's what they were talking about.
That's
that
what we were talking about.
It wasn't a ranking, it was just a list. We were number 6 on the list as far as projects submitted. Yeah.
And so that's great. I mean,
yeah, it is. You're right.
And if we get it, even better.
Absolutely right.
That's all.
And I just want to mention along the lines of the magazines, so we have actually ordered extras of those magazines because we have a huge request for it. So just want to let you know if you want a few more copies that you want to send to friends or even put in offices if you have businesses, we have them here.
I also, I'm sorry, can I add to something?
Well, let's have Carl.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can let Jermaine finish her thought. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Just summer is here, and boy, it'd be nice to have a spray park today. And just keep cool out there. If you find folks in distress, please let them know that City Hall is open for their comfort. There's a library as well. So just if you see something that someone is in distress, please let them know that there are cooling areas for them. And we know that our local merchants are forgiving for that way too, and we'll provide them with a cool drink of water. I wanted to also bring out the be safe on the water, please. We know of our little secret cove down on Riverfront Park, and please be careful there. And we all want to enjoy the river, but please be careful. Additionally, I wanted to remind folks that your ballots are in the mail or in your hand and on your kitchen table. Please review those and fill those out. It's very important to vote. And then just a personal comment, I really appreciated the leeway that we had at the beginning of the meeting in order for us to bring all the information together at once so we could present to folks in a comprehensive and cognitive way to folks who might not be here but are watching on video about what we're talking about with the training hub. We get little pieces of information over a period of time, and I know for me it's simpler when I get an executive summary at the end of bringing it all together, and this is what we're talking about. And I think that is a good thing for us to bring forward to the folks that we serve. And just remember to vote, and also point of personal privilege. Happy birthday, Councilor Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jermaine.
I just wanted to bounce off of what with Council Member Kelly was talking about. That yesterday I heard our representative Lisa Janicki on the County Commissioners talking on Skagit Talk 97.1 about this exact issue, the opiates, and it was really awesome. I learned a lot listening to that. I'm pretty sure it's a podcast or something that they can get, but it was a really good interview. It was just yesterday, so.
All right. So I want to keep moving along here. It's 8:30, and we are on to public comments. I will start public comment right now at 8:32.
Do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you. Public comment, I'm starting it at 8:32. Is there anybody who would like to make public comment? Okay. I'll close it at 8:32. New business. We have the Sedro-Woolley Museum request for expansion. You have been so patient. Thank you so much. Patty, did you want to come forward and kind of talk about this?
We can. So all of you have been in the museum,
and you all are aware of how full it is. We would like to expand so that we can better display what we have, open up the area, just so that we everybody can see what's in there. We really want to make it more accessible, make it more cohesive, and even if we don't expand, we are making changes in the museum. So basically, that is my request, is that you give us permission to put on an expansion to the south. It's all in the drawing that you have received. We have already went ahead and we have been talking to the Rotary. We have talked to Keith Wagner about the state funds, and they have given us a list of things that we have to have in order to apply for funding, and that's why we went to the Rotary. We need to have an actual architectural drawing. We need to have an actual building bid. So those things are in process. We're just waiting for your approval to actually make it happen.
Patty, I have one
Please.
question. In looking at your drawing,
yes,
it looked like you were building right up to the edge of the alleyway.
So, according to Aaron Berg, there is no actual alley between our building and Frontier, but we have been requested to make an alley there. So there is a 16-foot easement there between Frontier and where the end of our new expansion would be.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yes.
So the recommendation is actually on page 106. Are there any more questions for Patty? And the recommendation is for a motion to approve the Sedro-Woolley Museum's request to build an addition.
I make a motion to approve the Sedro-Woolley Museum's request to build an addition.
I'll second.
So we have a motion that was made by Councilwoman Cornegay and seconded by Councilwoman Kelly. Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Mayor, I will need to abstain due to being on the museum board.
All right. So we have... Any opposed? No. Okay. So we have 4. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
You will be pleased with the progress.
Okay. We have tonight a couple of topics that we want to cover in executive session. The first one is under RCW 42.30.111I, and the other one is RCW 42.30.1101B. There will be no action. The first one will take about 15 minutes, and the second one about 10.
Do we have to do anything with these items?
Those are just informational. Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. We are back. It is 9:12.
Second.
Aye.